Welcome back. You're watching the Dr. Nandi Show. My first guest had an acute drug and alcohol problem. He says addiction is really the disease of looking away, quote unquote, a failure to face up to pain or fear in your life. But 26 years ago, he found the courage to look at his problems head on, and ever since then has been in continuous recovery. He's also pioneered a new way to treat addicts. Please welcome my friend, Tommy Rosen. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it, my friend.
So glad to be here.
Yeah, Tommy's amazing. So you've had a very successful career helping yourself and others recover. Tell me about the basis of your addiction. What do you think led to your addiction?
First thing I want to say is most people think about addiction as a particular substance. So I drink too much. I'm an alcoholic. I'm addicted to heroin. I'm a drug addict. Addiction is so much more than just that. It's not about the substance. It's not about the behavior, but it's about the causes and the conditions underneath. So there's a condition known as addiction. It is any behavior you do despite the fact that that behavior brings a negative consequence into your life. If you continue that behavior, that's in the realm of addiction. So now already we're taking an expansive view of addiction.
Absolutely.
Drugs, of course, we all think about that when we think about addiction. Alcohol, of course. But how about food?
Yeah.
Do you think we have a food problem in this country?
Huge problem. Epidemic.
Oh, God. And our food addictions lead to type 2 diabetes, heart disease, obesity, childhood obesity.
But one of the first addictions people are introduced to is sugar. And we've talked about this before. Sugar is the first, substance that people are addicted to, with dopamine coming out and all of the pleasure factors. But yeah, please, go ahead.
Yes. In addition, we have all the relationship disorders, codependency, sex addiction, a lot of shame around that one in particular. Just another place that human beings look to try to feel better. Beyond that, you have all the money-based addictions. So shopping, gambling, being constantly in a state of debt. And then I call those the big five, but recently the big five became the big six.
Yeah.
And technology addiction.
Yeah, big time.
So using technology not to enhance your life, but to avoid your life.
And tell me, I actually believe, and I'd love to hear what you say, I actually believe all of us are addicts of something. And I don't think anybody escapes. So it just depends on how society views you. For example, I remember in college and high school, and I was a super overachiever. And if I did not do well in something, I decompensated. And now that I look back at it, listen, my parents loved it. Here's a kid who's overachieving, attaboy, right? But really, I was getting my self-worth based on an external factor, whether it be your grades or getting into a school or being in medical school. And so I don't think anybody escapes, but it just depends on how acceptable that addiction is. If you're a drug addict, you're a derelict. Get out of here. You're weak. But if you're an overachieving business person who thrives on your business succeeding, you are a badass. You're great. And so I think in society, we forget about the essence, right? That it has to come from within. And we've talked about this. It's your personal relationship, and strengthening that is the basis, isn't it?
Yes. And I'm so glad you bring this up. Basically, everybody's on the spectrum. So the spectrum is, what if we change the word addiction to the human condition?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're in a condition where we're human beings and we are struggling in a variety of different ways. Everybody's facing something. And our natural inclination is to try to solve problems. The main problem we have generally as human beings is we don't feel well inside. We feel a sense of separation or loneliness, or maybe we felt a sense of insecurity or abandonment. The world is not a safe place. My needs are not going to get met. And as a result of those feelings, we start to reach out. And you said it best, as a child, the first thing we reach for is sugar. Right. And I call sugar the real gateway drug.
Absolutely.
So it starts there, and we start to set up a rhythm. And this is where people really start to understand addiction. The rhythm we're setting up is discomfort is the cue. Anxiety is the cue. Stress is the cue. We go into a routine to address that cue. The routine for the child, reach for sugar in some form. Feel better for a little bit, then crash. There's your rhythm. Discomfort, seek out a high, crash, repeat.
I'm going to take a break at this point. We'll come back with Tommy on the next section. We'll talk more about this. This is really fascinating. Such a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Please stay with us. You don't want to miss this.
Everybody has their story.
Yeah.
Some people react to their circumstances in a variety of different ways. My way of reacting, as I mentioned, was to set up a certain kind of rhythm in my life. It began with sugar, it advanced into drugs, first marijuana, alcohol, and then later on very serious drug abuse.
Welcome back. You're watching the Dr. Nandi Show, and a very important show. We're exploring ways to stop the addiction epidemic and also asking what can be done to reduce the chances of addicts in recovery relapsing and falling through the net. Now, Tommy Rosen's back with us, and we're talking about sugar as being the gateway drug. Tell me how yours started. What do you think the cause was for your addiction?
We're all born into a set of circumstances. Everybody has their story.
Yeah.
Some people react to their circumstances in a variety of different ways. My way of reacting, as I mentioned, was to set up a certain kind of rhythm in my life. It began with sugar, it advanced into drugs, first marijuana, alcohol, and then later on very serious drug abuse, cocaine and heroin. And as I look at it today, looking back 26 years, there's no shame about that for me, because I understand where I was coming from, what I was going through, and the choices I began to make as a child would inform the later, very painful and self-harming choices I would choose as an adolescent and then into my early 20s. What causes it? Discomfort, pain, disconnection, separation, loneliness, a feeling that you're not enough. In yoga, I would say a disconnection from self. I'm disconnected from me. I don't know how to feel good in my own skin. I don't know what baseline Tommy feels like. I never learned that. And I used food and hyperactivity and activity and sports, and I was like a kid just bouncing off the wall from one sugar event to the next through my childhood. So by the time I found drugs, marijuana in particular, and I really want your viewers to get this, the first time I ever smoked marijuana, I felt like it was the first time I'd taken a deep breath in my whole life. That I had never felt that kind of ease, that kind of comfort. There was relief. And I knew that that relief was something I could go after again and again. I had the power all of a sudden to change my emotional state of consciousness. And at that moment in time, I didn't realize the price I would later have to pay for that decision.
Let me go back a little bit. You know, you said something very interesting, and I didn't know that, and we've talked before, that was the first time you actually took a deep breath, and it could be an ease. What was childhood like? I mean, did you feel not at ease throughout most of your childhood? Tell me about that.
So children are displaying a lack of ease in a variety of ways.
Sure.
Mine was more on the positive side, so hyperactivity. My parents would say things like, "You can't ever sit still. Could you please just sit still? Why don't you stop? Please sit down, calm down." You know, that was always my thing, was hyperactivity. I was the kid who woke up on the right side of bed. I wasn't a depressive type. I loved life. I wasn't trying to get away from life. I loved my life. I loved sports. I loved my friends. I loved it all. But
were you always trying to find the sweet spot, though? You know what I mean? Like you're trying to find a place where you felt really good?
Everybody's trying to find that. Every human being, you're born into this world, you're seeking comfort right away.
But were you finding it? What I'm saying is, when you were hyperactive, when you were doing those things, was it a constant yearning, or was it something you actually reached?
I think what happens for a person who's an addict is comfort becomes the moment when you get the concoction just right.
Yeah.
And it's fleeting. You get everything just right. The outside world finally organizes itself the way the inside world wants it to, which, by the way, is incredibly rare. So what we have to do is, in recovery, we have to teach people one day at a time, first of all, to have an inner focus, start to connect here, and start to find out, how could this be in a place of contentment and happiness regardless of what's going on in the outside world? For the addict, it's the opposite. The outside world is is bad, is scary, is frightening, is evil, there's trouble out there. And if it doesn't arrange itself to my liking, I can't find peace.
And the only way you can do that is with whatever behavior simulates that, and you find that and you want to go back to that because you can't find it anywhere else.
That's it. So all we're really talking about here is habit and the formation of habit. We adopt a routine, repeat the routine over time. It becomes a habit. In the mind, it becomes a habit. Also in the body, in the brain, neural pathways are formed which reinforce the habit that you've always chosen. Now, if we really want to change that, you can't just tell an addict or somebody, hey, why don't you just stop?
Right.
The consequences of your life, look what you've done. It's so terrible. You're risking your life, you're risking your family, you're risking your job. But that's like telling a homeless person, you know, why don't you just get a house?
Right.
That's not looking at the complexity of what you're dealing with. What you have to explain to a person who's suffering an addiction is, you can't just stop, but here's what we'll do. We'll try a new routine, which will bring about a sense of ease for you, similar to the sense of ease you used to feel from the old routine.
Without having the detrimental effects that you had before. We have to take a break. When we come back, we'll stay with Tommy. This is amazing stuff that people just don't talk about with addiction. Please stay right here with us.
And all of a sudden, if you take drugs and alcohol away from that person, it's not as if their character is just built into this pristine, beautiful character of a wonderful human being. You now have to become
you.
You have to become you.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with me on the Dr. Nandi Show. And we're talking about recovery with expert Tommy Rosen. He's been clean and sober for 26 years, but huge numbers of people in recovery fall off the wagon, and we all know it to be true. You know, so Tommy, we talked about what happened and some of the things that happen for people who are addicts. How did you change your life around? And then how have you taken that gift and then helped others with this revolutionary new technique that you're using to help people really reclaim their lives?
For me, like all people who struggle with acute addiction or chronic addiction, when it gets that bad, it's going to take a person arriving at a bottom. And what I mean by a bottom is a person reaches a point where they can no longer continue to live the way they've been living, even though they have no idea how else they could live.
Right.
You might say, they've come to a point where they can tell the truth. And I told the truth. And I told the truth to my father. And my dad had always been there for me. My mom had always been there for me also. I had an incredibly close relationship with my dad. So I reached out to him and I told him everything but the truth in the first part of that conversation.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
Life's hard, my girlfriend broke up with me, school's not going so well, I have no money, like everything was wrong with my life. And he just sort of cut through and he said, you know, I know you're on drugs. I know you're on drugs and you're going to have to get help. And I said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it, Dad. I don't want to become one of those people. And there was a silence on the phone and I recognized my father had started crying.
Oh.
And for a moment, I had what you'd call a moment of awakening. And I could see myself clearly through my father's tears. And so I tell people I got sober on the tears of my dad. And it's true, and thank God he was there for me, my family was there for me. And I went and I got help. The takeaway from this story for anybody watching this is nobody does this thing alone.
Exactly.
You have to have a human being, somebody is going to intervene and help you. Because when you're at that point and you're stuck, I mean, anybody, when you're trying to get to the next level of anything,
That's exactly right.
you got to have somebody.
Human beings are, I think, we're hardwired to work in tribes. There are some people who can do it alone, that's the exception. But if we have a tribe supporting us, that's the key. But you provide support to so many addicts. Tell us your technique and what do you do?
What I recognized is after I'd gotten sober, which is a miracle unto itself, I started to experience life. Life happened. You know, they say, what do you get when you sober up a horse thief? Sober horse thief. you still have all the challenges of your life. Now,
Right.
when I was in addiction, what I tell people is, I lied, but I'm not a liar. I cheated, but I'm not a cheater. I stole, but I'm not a thief. But I existed as somebody who did those things. And all of a sudden, if you take drugs and alcohol away from that person, it's not as if their character is just built into this pristine, beautiful character of a
Right.
wonderful human being. You now have to become
Be you.
You have to become you, and you have to become a great human being, as all of us are trying to become. And the way that works, again, is community, lots of support, and you have to have a path to walk. The path of the 12 steps is a very powerful path that provides a person with a way out of addiction. It absolutely works. People misunderstand it sometimes. Other people reject it at times. But if you put your heart and soul into it, it works.
And you've incorporated spirituality into this as well.
Spirituality is a key part of the human condition.
Correct.
Therefore, it has to be a key part of recovery. The addict is just seeking. We have a longing like any other human being. We're all seeking. So we're just looking in the wrong places. Now in recovery, we have to start looking in the right places.
And I love the fact that you say when somebody's an addict and you have them go into recovery, you give them something more acceptable, more suitable, less detrimental. Because you just say, you can't just say, well, stop drinking or stop doing this and expect a miracle. It just doesn't happen. You give them something instead of that detrimental behavior. And then you give them more of the subtle changes that they can experience in spirituality. And yoga has been tremendous in your teachings, correct?
Yes, huge. I want to come to that. I'll just simply say that once you take drugs and alcohol away from a human being who's been used to navigating life through that, these other things start showing up, other forms of addiction that we spoke about earlier in your show.
Yeah.
So I had to start dealing with relationships. I had to start dealing with my relationship with food, with women, romantic relationships, relationships with my family, relationships with colleagues at work. All of a sudden I had to figure out how can I be in this world? And I took drugs and alcohol partially because I was so uncomfortable about those relationships.
To begin with. And now you got to deal with it.
Yes. So what happens for a lot of people, you're talking about relapse. Why do people relapse? Sometimes people fall off the path because they get sideswiped by a relationship. We call that another form of addiction called codependency. They haven't yet figured out where do they end and where does another person begin. And that happens to people sometimes at 10 years sober. And they have a divorce or they get into a new relationship, they get married, whatever, and all of a sudden all these issues come up and it knocks them right on their butt. And they don't know what happened. What happened to me? I'm miserable like the way I used to be miserable when I picked up drugs and alcohol. And then maybe they have a really bad day and off they go. They relapse. Maybe they die of a heroin overdose. And what you'll hear in the paper or friends will say, they died of heroin addiction. And it's not true.
Exactly right.
It's not true. They died of codependency, unchecked. They died of relationship disorders, unchecked. The way that they went out was through heroin or whatever it was, but that was not the cause of death.
Your book is called Recovery 2.0.
Yes.
And how can they find out more about your entire method?
Sure. Well, come to r20.com. So just the letter R, number 2, number 0.com. And our whole world of videos and lectures about yoga and meditation, lifestyle, food, how to relate, how to understand addiction from a broader perspective, how to move beyond shame. I mean, it's so deep. There's a lot there.
That's awesome. Will you come back to our show?
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Tommy Rosen, everybody.